Welcome to What the Decks, where over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today I get to play the role of Deck Doctor once again. Today we'll be diving into two decks, not just one, but two. The primary deck, it's going to kind of like be primary, secondary deck format. It was Kalen, also goes by Charsh. Charsh on the Discord. We were chatting and I was like, you know what? I realized I haven't actually run. We talked previously about potentially checking out one of his decks on the show, including previously like Rothkorn's build. I want to say either with masks or relics, which I've explored both personally. I think it was with relics. We explored masks on the show, previous deck submitted by Jake. If you're interested in checking that out, that's available. And outside of that, I thought, I think it was Kalen who was either on the same page as me or steered me, possibly. I'll just go with steered me towards the Rothkorns with relics pairing. Got me interested in that, and I checked it out and was like, ooh, I think there's something here. So we've chatted about decks before, and I realized I was like, hey, I haven't done one of yours on the channel, and I could use a topic for this week. Is there a deck that you'd be down for me to review? So today is going to be that Gryselle's Arenai deck with Malevolent masks. But funny enough, when we last spoke about this deck concept, it was the same time a local of mine, Zach, also known as the Mr. Doctor, reached out to me maybe at our local night and was telling me about how much he likes this pairing. And so I just saw the comment from Twixer. Wait, they are already wearing masks. That they are. We're doubling down, which is a fantastic concept for like a deck in my mind when we're we get to double down on something. That's fun. Yeah, masks on masks here. I always I love stuff like that. Is what it boils down to. Okay, so we'll see what happens when the masks that they wear are not their own. Now, just a little bit of admin that I want to get out of the way. There was no show last week. Mentioned the previous week that life has gotten quite busy on this side. So I think we're going to run into... the show is going to need to kind of adjust as needed for the time being to accommodate that busyness on my side. I don't want that to necessarily mean that you show up and don't get an episode. Instead, I would prefer, a stream. I would prefer instead that maybe we tackle topics like this where we review a deck together. There are other fun topics that I have planned down the line. Like, for example, I want to do like a what the decks so far sort of episode where we take a look at like all the things that have been built on the channel. There are rumors abroad about possibly a second edition of Underworlds. So what we've been seeing is new Underworlds that was teased in like a Spearhead crossword puzzle. And if that's how they're signaling a new edition, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen that with new 40k, new AOS, new kill team. We just saw a new logo teased and a new sculpted base little rat with a bomb and a mission strapped to him. So it looks like good things are around the corner for Underworld. So probably no better time to do kind of like a retrospective as to like what we've tackled on the channel so far. Wild if it is a new edition, we'll see. It could always just be this game has had a tradition of being able to reset itself with new core boxes, and so it would be interesting if new edition is what we are adventuring into. However, I wouldn't imagine they would just be like, hey, status quo, we're going to have another core box, and tease that in that spearhead crossword puzzle or word search format. So um, yeah, a lot of positivity on the Mortal Realms Discord about the potential. And that's really cool. We have a really great community there. If you're not there already, I would encourage you to come join us there. So let's see. What else did I want to mention here? I wanted to mention that I think Skritter is owed another episode. So this is the second time the Arenai have been featured on the show, and I think Skritter is owed that as well. Justice for Skritter, because the last time I built a Scavix Plague Pack deck on the show, it was not great. And so there is a Voidcurse Thralls deck that I've run at like a Madtown Throwdown. I ran for a good while for our quarter, or like for just enjoyment and throughout the leagues, and even considered bringing to Adepticon this year. So I think that would be an easy home run for Scavix Plague Pack, and for an episode slotting into like this busyness season for me. So I think we'll have an episode going over Voidcurse Thralls, Scavix Plague Pack in the near future. Any decks that you want to send in, would love to take a look at them like I'm doing today at that retrospective, and we'll see what else comes our way. As soon as we have new content, we'll be building again. I think in the meantime, I'm gonna have to take a pause on building fresh builds. So it's gonna be a lot of taking a look at builds. Another idea I had, and this is the last one before we'll get off to the main topic. The other idea I had is Worlds is coming up, right? And I could, if this was a desired topic, I could say, hey, here's kind of like a deck archetype, like for example, Hungering Parasite with the Gnarl Spirit pack. I think that's amongst the top decks out there right now, and so that's one that I have to keep in mind when prepping for Worlds and what I'm going to bring. So we could shift focus for a minute to cover World prep. Here's a deck that I expect to see in some way, shape, or form at Worlds. What would I do about it? If I saw that deck, and what makes it tick? Like, why do I think I'm going to see this deck? And again, like, then how do you handle that? So, Justice for Skritter, retrospective, any decks that you want to see reviewed, please send them in. I love taking a look at your decks on the show, and potentially like Worlds prep style things. So, like right now, I think Malevolent Masks with Mournflight is like kind of under the radar, and I don't know why. I guess less maybe so for those out there watching the channel, because I've definitely talked about it before, that I think it's a bit of a powerhouse. So if I'm planning to bring something to Worlds that isn't it, then what, or like I kind of feel like I need to justify every build against, or like every deck that I'm considering against those two decks that I've mentioned, as well as others. So it's constantly trying to figure out like what I want to like bring into the puzzle and what I think the puzzle will look like. And you can get it wrong. So like it was really fun. We had theorized that Nova was going to have a lot of Rhymelock relics, or at least I thought so, because I saw that it was formalized in the FAQ as like a good way to counter Hungering Parasite. It was something a lot of people already figured was the best way, or was like how those interactions worked. But once they were formalized in the FAQ, it was kind of like, oh, are we going to see this a lot more now that it's like 100% like irrefutably like this is how it works? Or like Breakneck Slaughter had just been nerfed as well. So it was kind of like, okay, I think that people are going to have like countering Hungering Parasite in mind, especially with its prevalency so far. And I think that we're going to see a lot less Breakneck Slaughter because people need some time to adjust to the nerfs that were put in place there. I don't think that they take the deck out of the question, but they definitely knocks it down just a tad. So anyways, we're running off on anecdotes, so let's dive into the episode. Thanks again for joining. Good day, Wellner. Wellner also adding in chat here, another option you could do is more interviews. So sorry for blowing out everybody's eardrums. I mean, that's kind of you to apologize for that, but that is definitely on me and my like newness. I'm a newbie when it comes to doing a lot of this stuff, tackling. If you ever watch the first episode of the show, I talk about how I just decided one day that if I kept putting off starting the show to try to learn and make things perfect, like first try, I would never get the show off the ground. And so I just started. And so I had never done like balancing like two different audio sources before. And so definitely on me. Try to figure out how to fix it in post. But the busyness has made it difficult. I got something that sounds like the levels are better, but we're very tinny. So again, learning. I hope to kind of circle back and like correct the audio in that episode to make it more widely available or widely appealing than it is now. I think like with the audio the way it is, that could be a shut off for somebody trying to adventure into the episode. So but busyness has been a blockade for wanting to do things with the channel lately. So at the very least, let's keep the channel going. Let's keep doing these Tuesdays. And like, thank you everybody that tunes in. It means a lot. It keeps the show going. That's for sure. Beyond apologizing, Jacob added here with the interviews and have other people talk about their philosophies on deck building. I love that too. I think the challenge there would be coordinating at this particular time. So if you're out there and you want to talk about deck building at this particular time on Tuesdays at noon Central Standard Time, let me know. Maybe we can work something out. That could be fun. I'd be very interested. So all right. So the Arenai with masks. Now, when I first heard this, I was wildly intrigued because I was told that I think it's good. This was Zach. Like, I think it works. And I was like, really? Like, what about this stands out to you? And let me pull Zach's deck. So I've got them both available to us. So I'm just going to open another instance of, here we go. Instance of our deck builder here and add the Mr. Doctors. So right at the gate, we can see here that we have completely different selections by these two individuals. And I'm going to be very curious to dive into those over the course of the episode. Like, what choices did Kaylin take over Zach here, and why? And do they both work? At least, do they feel like they both work? Because there are definitely different build paths. We had the Cunning Crew episode on the show where we looked at a build done by Phil that was more hold centric, and one from me that was less so. And then there was an additional deck built for the Cunning Crew by a local named Jake, and he had cards different between the two of us as well. So like, there's always room for alternate pathing. There's always room for personality, and I think that's really important. Like, play style, personality, all of those things can come through in a deck. A deck is not necessarily solved because like these are the best cards in the best like pairing period. No, you can actually really pull tricks over on people if they get into that mindset. If they expect to see, oh, I'm up against Hungry and Parasite with GSP or Headsman's Curse, right? And so in those cases, you might start expecting to see the same cards that have been talked. Well, I mean, maybe I'm kind of creating an example where I'm like, oh hey, like, here is a case where you're gonna always see these cards. I'm just saying that those decks are really popular right now, and so um, I think when a pairing becomes popular, you see a lot of the same cards in play because there's a lot more conversation around that deck, and then you'll see a lot more of the same choices being tested and put forth. But when you break the mold, you can really throw one over on people. And so there are so many different reasons why to venture into different parts of the same pairing, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And it's worthwhile. So like right here, we see that, Kalen is favoring 4 of the Arenai's surges, whereas the Mr. Doctor's favoring 4 of masks. We've got a 3-3 split here in end phase, 4-2 split in end phase over with Kalen. The other thing you might have already noticed is that the Mr. Doctor is running 9 gambits and 11 upgrades, which is a very fascinating choice, and one I wish I had realized we would be looking at today, so I could have asked him more about that. So the deck reviews that we do on the show are generally blind, but this is one of those moments where I'm super curious, like because I know Zach is a very methodical player. He tests this deck has seen a lot of play from him, so this is a very refined build, and I'm curious as to at what point it went from 10 to 10 or 10 and 10 to 9 and 11, because I would be shocked to hear it started at 9 and 11. And then over here again, we see 10 and 10. However, we see a heavy favoring of the Gryselle's Arenai side of the deck. We have 7 gambits here and 6 upgrades over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 upgrades, but only 3 gambits. So fascinating. All right. So let's take a look first at. I wish I had an easier way. I was trying to play around with like a different way to split this before the episode today, but I wasn't getting it to work quite right, where we could have like a comparison view. So we'll have to tab back and forth a bit. All right. So initially, I think I saw Ritual Performance and Storm of Blades in both cases. Yes. So let's go over those. We have here, score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that attack action resulted in a critical hit, or that attack action dealt precisely enough damage to take the target out of action. Makes a lot of sense. The flexibility here is really great. This card really speaks to a trick with Grievous as well. Well, doesn't matter too much, but I can like immediately identify some cases where it does matter. So let's say you're up against Ripa's Snarlfang, and you're going to deal exact damage to them, and they have Narrow Escape in hand. The Cunning Crew has a card like this. The Hexbane Hunters have a card like this by hook or by crook, where under circumstances, when being dealt exact damage, the fighter can receive 1 fewer damage instead. So you've got this card, this ploy in your hand, reaction ready to go to stop an exact damage attack coming in and killing your fighter. Well, with a card like Ritual Performance in your scoring hand, if you are rolling a Grievous attack and you crit, Grievous is a May, but so the Ritual Performance invites you to take the critical result, even though it's going to deal more damage, and you're still going to score this card. And now you also don't have to worry about that reaction coming out and stopping your attack. It's against 3 warbands. I think those are the 3. There might be more in the game that I'm just less familiar with. But at the very least, like those 3 warbands are cases where you could see that happen. And maybe like Universal Rivals decks down the road. So now you know, like I have the flexibility. This card's gonna score. It's a very reliable card. Love to see it in both decks. And like exact damage is really great kill surge in my mind. As far as kill surges go, you've got some good profiles here to help deliver that, like range 1, range 2, giving you your 2 damage options. You've got the different sources of 1 damage. So, and then you're going to have at least one source of +1 damage in here. Oh, I thought they had an in-house +1 damage. I was mistaken. Either way, 1s and 2s, it's a good way to help you add up to a perfect kill a lot of the time. So, Storm of Blades, Surge. Score this immediately after your Warband's 4th or subsequent attack action in the same phase. It's no wonder to see this here, because you have things like Thryala, grabbing you 2 of those attacks in one go with combo. You have combo available on your other fighters, but you need to upgrade into it. So let's see. We have Piercing Strike, Lacerating Blow, and Criplash all in Zach's build here, as well as the near same smattering of extra damage over here. We just don't have Piercing Strike, so it'll be interesting to see what the difference is there for Kaelin. So we have plenty of opportunity to add to combo there, as well as we probably have the ability to scythe in both of these decks, I'm going to imagine. Yeah, and scything could assist you with that as well. And it's not successful attacks, it's just attacks made. So you have different ways to cheat these out faster. Very often, like the slowest you're going to do this, as long as Thryala is alive and has a target within reach, is going to be 3 turns instead of 4. So that's really nice. No wonder we see it in both builds. All right. So then we're going to continue to look at what is the same. We have Death's Visage and Feast of Violence over here, and we have both present in Zach's build as well. And then I can see that he splashed in some holding and wearing a mask while inspired. So Death's Visage, very similar to Storm of Blades, but it doesn't have the ability to lower the amount of activations invested. So Storm of Blades, once you hit that 4th attack, no matter what activation you're in, you can get it. Whereas Death's Visage is your Warband's 3rd or subsequent successful attack action. Oh, hold on. What am I thinking of? We're gonna look at masks. Let's have our filter going in Kaelin's build here. I'm looking for the Arenai. There we are. Refresh. And then let's filter. Let's do Arenai and masks. Okay, so we have 64 cards here. Which, yes, of course, it's not an older warband, so of course we're going to have 64 cards. We want to go take a look at their surges. Particularly, I'm interested in a mask surge. Death's Visage. I wonder if I'm thinking of... Is that card in Breakneck Slaughter? Is it Feast of Violence? It's Feast of Violence. It's in both decks. Okay. Okay, so Death's Visage and Feast of Violence is the deck. Okay. I just... Apparently, brain jumped over to Feast of Violence. Feast of Violence is the one that's very... So, like, we have 3 cards that are all asking us to do very similar things. Feast of Violence is the one that's the most similar to Storm of Blades. So again, requiring us to attempt 4 attack actions in the same phase. Okay, that one's squared away. Let's jump to Feast of Violence. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that was the 3rd or subsequent range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the same phase, and each of those attack actions was made in a different activation step. And they have errated this card just to make sure, and it's not showing right here, but that's okay, I can tell you. It's been errated to just say that Scything won't brick this. So like each of those attacks were or was made in a different activation step right now is saying like every attack that you logged with fighters, have to have been in different activations. They couldn't have been stacked in the same activation or outside of activations. That's very like rules technical. However, like this did have the ability to brick, and that has been improved. So now, as long as you're making 3 attack actions across the different phases, and what we can do as well is we can. Oh, you know what? I don't think they've updated the FAQ. So Underworld's FAQ.info has not been updated with this. Let's check. Get started here. Let's see. Feast of Violence. Hey Spinnerite, thanks for joining. Yeah, it's Zach found it to be a blast, and he found that he was completing objectives that he did not expect to complete with this pairing, and that it worked way better than he, like, I guess maybe initially gleamed. And it was really cool. It was so funny to see, like, I think it was within a day, like I had heard from Zach about it, and then gotten this message from Kaylin about it. So they were both like mad sciencing their way to an interesting Arenai build. But yeah, so this card was changed to 3 or more of those attack actions were made in a different activation step, which is a really elegant change to sidestep like the way it could brick before. And I think a lot of people aren't even going to notice this change. Like it was working as intended for them. They weren't aware of a way that it could brick, and now they can just carry on without worry. And so if they were to run up against somebody who knew about the rules technicality and was like, hey, technically each of those attacks have to be in different activation steps, can brick if they're not, then that individual is in the know and isn't going to stop them from scoring as well. So yeah, all right, so Feast of Violence is kind of our slower version of Storm of Blades, just given that it's going to require at least 3 different activations to make it happen. But you're going to be charging a lot with this warband, and this warband is rather fast, like incredibly fast. And we didn't do a rundown of the fighters at the top of the show because we've already covered Gryselle's Arenai on the show before. There's a Void Curse build submitted by Wellner. If you want to check out another, maybe, not the pairing that you would immediately bring to mind with them. Like I think you take a look at Gryselle's Arenai, you see how aggro focused they are. We've talked about how they're gambling aggro before with some of their flourishes and whatnot, but with how like aggro they are, you're going to start thinking, at least in my mind, breakneck slaughter. Out of the gate, you're going to think like tooth and claw. You're going to think your traditional aggro pairings, but Void Curse Thralls takes their damage mitigation to another level, and is a really interesting deck with them. It also leans into like this suicide aggro style game plan. And then with this deck, it seems to focus on, we'll have to take a look more at their end phase. But like right now, the surges so far have been focusing on just making attacks, right? So very complimentary surge package. Because if we look into Death's Visage a little further here, this was the one I kind of like departed from. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter with a mask upgrade takes an enemy fighter out of action, or your warband's third or subsequent successful attack action in the same phase. So if you're succeeding attacks, and you're going to have plenty of opportunity with attacks with this warband, then the third time you succeed in a phase, this is going to score for you. So your shots at scything could help. Your shots at combo could help, because each of those are going to offer you more opportunities to get to those successful attacks. Alternatively, once you have a mask, this just becomes a kill surge. So I think this is a strong pick here as well. I'm not surprised to see it in both builds. So where do these builds depart in the Surge department? Over here we have Faultless Display and Grandstand. And over here we have Audacious Aspect and Domino Dominance. I love the Masks deck a lot. It was, I mean, my top 3 decks, like without a doubt, are Fearsome Fortress, Rhymelock Relics, and Malevolent Masks. So this is the side of the pairing I'm going to know a lot more about. We've visited Gryselle's before, but a lot of that's going to be rediscovery for me. You kind of get it into brain, and then as we're reading through, we get reminders and like, oh yeah, I forgot they could do that, things like that. So anytime we're looking at a comparison, I'll probably start with the Mask side and then lean into the Gryselle's side after that. So here in Zach's version of the deck, Audacious Aspect is asking 1 or more friendly fighters with a Mask upgrade hold an objective with an odd value. Or your warband holds 2 or more objectives, each of which is in no one's or enemy's territory. So I imagine if I'm Zach and I'm running this card, I'm making sure that there are objectives that I can land on with my range 2 fighters, so Thryala and Ritaria, at the beginning of the game, because you've got a threat range of 6, and it's not the hardest thing in the world to plant these objective tokens as landing spots within 2 of starting hexes. And you're probably doing that in no one's territory and just beyond into enemy territory as well. But keeping them as close to your side as possible. And then maybe you luck into this second condition. But I imagine the Surge is in here primarily for the first condition, which is after... Well, the best part about this card in general is that score this immediately after an activation step. A lot of the times when you look at positional scoring, its strength is improved. Like, you should consider it more if you see immediately after an activation. A lot of the times you see an opponent's activation or an opponent's power step. And those surges are slower and they offer more response. So something like Audacious Aspect, if Zach is able to get a fighter over the line onto an objective, right, and hold that position into his next turn, then all he has to do is get 1 more. There, your warband holds 2 or more objectives, each of which is in no one's or enemy territory. So at the end of his next activation, he can score this if he goes unmoved, and you might go unmoved with your 2 dodge. So that's pretty cool. But also, once you have a Mask upgrade, odd is the most populated. There are 3 odd values on the board instead of the 2 even. So there's more, it's a target rich environment for you when you're going for Audacious Aspect in general. I think it's really cool to see here. And I would be unshocked to hear that he scores the second condition quite often, because 2 dodge, sometimes like that's your crit defense, and you're not moving. And then you just spend your next activation getting 1 more fighter into position. Domino Dominance, great card for when it scores. Once again, score this immediately after a power step if 1 or more surviving inspired friendly fighters have a Mask upgrade. So majority of what we saw here, if not all of it, is going to taking over. Could get an out of sequence attack action. This is another cool thing in this deck. This is going to help with Feast of Violence. This is going to help with, or not Feast of Violence. I keep mixing these 2 up, literally like back and forth as we go. It can help with Death's Visage and Storm of Blades and Ritual Performance. It can help with all of these during a power step if you activate something like Vitrix's Eye. Really cool reason to take a look at this deck is it can speed up your surges once you get the ball rolling, right? But most of these surges are going to score before power. Domino Dominance is always going to score after power, but that means you're probably going to, this is the beauty of this card, you're probably going to get Seed Glory at some point during your activation, and then that might be what you needed to inspire a fighter as well. For example, let's take a look at our inspires here. So they all say it is the 3rd round, and then they all have something unique that follows that. So, or this fighter's attack action results in a crit, right? For our leader, Threala, or this fighter makes an attack action as a reaction. So, did I perform combo? Inspired. All right. So, if Threala has activated and I have Domino Dominance in my hand and I was able to get some Seed Glory, then I have somebody to hand a mass to. And then at the end of that power step, I'm scoring Domino Dominance. That seems really great. Ritaria, we're just going to quickly go over how the rest of them inspire. Or this fighter's attack action staggers an enemy fighter. So if she is successful with her attack and she doesn't kill them, stagger, and then she'll inspire. I find from what I've seen, so like against these gals, these are the two that inspire the quickest. Calexis, the Silver Blur, or more attack dice for this. What does it say? Or you roll 4 or more attack dice for this fighter's attack roll. So she's got this ability called Blur. After this fighter's attack roll 1 attack dice for each success you rolled, including critical successes, and add these to the roll. So she's got 2 dice out the gate and she's fishing for swords, but if she's able to get like 2 successes, that's 2 more dice. And as soon as she's rolled 4 or more attack dice in an attack roll, you can always boost her amount of attack dice that she's throwing as well. If you can get +1 dice to her in the form of a ploy or an upgrade, then she's throwing 3. She only needs to get 1 success to get that extra dice. She's throwing 4. She's inspired. And then she's on 6 movement speed. Also, Ritaria has flying when she is charging, which is nuts, and inspires to just to have it always, which is really cool. And then Traxia over here, she's the hardest one to inspire. She's the one that I almost never see inspired. Or this fighter uses a critical ability. This is really difficult because of the way how critical abilities are written. You have to have more critical results than your opponent. So the only way to get Traxia to inspire is for your opponent to roll their attack dice, and then for them to contain no crits. And then if she crits in response, so you always want to roll for her, period. But if she crits in response, then she has more crits than her opponent did. What stinks is about this ability is you're going to be throwing a lot more attack dice at her than she's going to be throwing defense dice. She's only got the 1 defense dice. And if you get 1 crit in your attack, that's all you have, right, to push the attack through, and she gets a crit that feels like a critical defense, it wasn't. It doesn't count, so she doesn't get to use her critical ability. She has to have more crits than her opponent. So get her a Rhymelock Relics pairing. Give her that that Chillblade armor. Give her something to do. But without Chillblade armor, she's hanging out here, probably being the one that doesn't inspire across majority of your games. Whereas, I mean, like she's against the odds on it, right? Whereas like Gryselle, she's offensive. She's throwing 3 dice for it. There's a good chance that you'll get your crit on average with her on 3 dice. Okay, so we've taken a look fully at Zach's surges. So let's pivot over and take a look at the 2 that are different for Kaylin here. So we have Faultless Display. Surge. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack action if the attack roll contained only successes. Okay. So what's nice about this is it's not a kill surge, but getting perfect dice results is not always the most fun thing to wait for. I feel like this is when your dice could be giving you exactly this, and then as soon as you have this in hand, it's like they know, and they're like, how about all but 1? So generally, and like if you do plus dice, you're making your attack more likely to succeed, to hit, but you're making it less likely to score Faultless Display for you. So there's a weird push and pull there. It's not the worst card, and like something like Threala, well, successful is actually a bit of a pain on this card, because the more dice that you're throwing, the more likelihood of success. So something like Threala here, you would think like, oh, Bladed Buckler, I just need that hammer. That's a 50-50. before we even calculate in supports, because I've got 2 smash results on the dice, the hammer by name, and 1 crit, so half of them. However, I am then relying on my opponent to not roll successes, so I'm looking for a 1 defense dice target, and I'm hoping that they're not going to roll successfully. 2 hammers, 2 50/50s. So, I mean, as soon as you go to your sword profiles or you go to 3 dice, you're pretty much asking for this card not to score. But it's not the worst card. I think if you take a look at the surges we've talked about already, though, I think Domino Dominance and Audacious Aspect both stand above this surge, like in reliability. And Grandstand. All right, so Surge, Duel. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action if that attack action succeeded and 2 or more of your Warband's Flourish Gambits were persisting during that action. We have 4 flourishes over here. We only have 2 flourishes in Zach's build. So this is an interesting decision space. This is what I was talking about earlier. Alternate routes, different playstyles, different personality choices. I don't think that Grandstand is a bad call here. It's when you lean this hard into flourishes. I think that's totally acceptable. And like, let's see, we have 3 masks here, right? Whereas over on this side, wow, Zach's only got 4 masks. Oh my gosh, Zach, you're crazy. With Unveiled Ambitions. Is Unveiled Ambitions over here as well? No, it's not. Okay. But Maskborn is. Okay, we're going to talk about that. So, effectively 5 masks. I like to think of Unveiled Ambitions as an additional mask. It's not entirely, like your capacity for masks as a whole is 4, but your reliability is 5. And that's good. Like I would rather my capacity be lower by 1 number if my reliability is up by 1 number. And Unveiled comes with some extra benefits as well, in the sense that you can scrabble in the dirt for it if really need be, as well as you get to choose exactly what mask you're looking for, not just any mask. So that's cool. So over here we have 4 masks to support something like Audacious Aspect scoring the mask way, and something like Domino Dominance scoring. I'm of the mind that if you have a surge that's looking for something, then you need at least 3 of it in your deck. And the more things that you have asking for that in your scoring objectives, the more of that thing that you should consider. So 3 is the minimum for me. And having played the mass deck, and seen kind of what's to come, like that's a I would say 4 is really the minimum in a mass deck. But 3 is generally my rule for surges, and scoring in general. So it makes a lot of like I really like seeing that we have 4 flourishes here. The bummer is we need to draw 2 of them at the same time, and that is tough. As soon as it's asking for 2 of the same thing, 4 becomes my minimum. 5 becomes my comfort zone. And so that's part of the gambler aspect of this deck. We have again referred to them previously as gambling aggro or casino aggro. I think casino aggro is more, it flows a little better off the tongue, is generally what I've heard people describe them as. And that's because as soon as you jump on those flourishes, then they have negatives if they stay in play. Like you're betting that you're going to pay off your flourish, but you're also looking to draw them in combination, for something like Grandstand. So that's like card order, you're hoping for. And then, even just taking a look at acrobatic, which they all have. This is another reason why we call them casino aggro, is because both on offense and defense, like dice matter so much. That sounds silly, right? But like you're looking at 2 health on these fighters. So if an attack gets through, like it's taking them down. You don't have an attack to shake off. So you're looking for a dodge, and you're like either to kill the attack entirely, or at least to dodges to mitigate the damage incoming. and that's unlike other aggro out there. Hence why they've earned that casino aggro reputation. So I think Grandstand is totally fine. I think this is again one of those divergent points in this build, and yeah, okay. There's floor for 4 flourishes. For a moment, I thought I saw fervor, and I was like, oh, did I miss another flourish here? No. Similar word shape, but not another flourish. I don't know how many flourishes they have available to them. Did we take them all? That's another question. So, whose deck are we in right now? We're in Kalen's. Nope, we're in Zach's. What? That's funny. These are 2 different decks for sure, but it's glitched and it has the Mr. Doctor's name up here. I'm gonna reload this just so that that confuses me less, because this is definitely Kalen's deck. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And let's see. Cool. Okay. So flourish. There's one more. Executioner's flourish. So why did this one get left behind? Let's take a look at it, see if I can't figure it out right away. So friendly fighters attack actions that target a fighter with no wound counters have the critical dice characteristic. Hold on. Oh, okay. I see what so friendly fighters attack actions that target a fighter with no wound counters are looking for crits and crits only. Well, and supports if they're available. Friendly fighters attack actions have Grievous 1. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeds. Yeah, I would say locking yourself out of attacks for the rest of the around could be really like essentially like basic successes on attacks because you're gambling on a crit. Like this is casino aggro at like its highest ask. This is a scary card. I would not bring this either if I didn't have to. Okay, cool. So on to our end phases. So I like both surge packages. I think if I were to make one recommendation against either of them, like I think I like the presence of audacious aspect more than the presence of faultless display. And Kalen might be listening to this right now. I see you in chat going, like it works for me. And if it does, then don't listen to me and keep taking this card. But if you find that like it has sat in your hand just taunting you with some not successes, then maybe consider pulling this one out. I bet you have. They have. I think. Hold on. Running down a rabbit hole. I think they have an upgrade that allows for swords and hammers to be successes for a minute. Is that true? Yeah. While this fighter is inspired, rolls of... Oh, so they have to be inspired first. Okay. Rolls of swords and hammers are successes in this fighter's attack rolls. I bet that this card, though, Star Performer, which I think is a great card, I think that one probably goes along with faultless display. I wonder, it doesn't look like you have room for it, but I wonder if that would help with that pick. Neither of you bring Star Performer. Interesting. Like that's a card that always makes it into my mind when I think about Gryselle's Arenai. I was gonna feel really silly if I was like, don't they have one of these? And then they didn't. So thankfully they did, and that mental space was correct. All right, so end phases. What are we taking a look at here? So we have no correlation. Oh no, we have one correlation. Okay, I was looking at the mask part of this. So Hooded Stranger is the mask piece that they both take. Score this in an end phase if one or more friendly fighters with a mask upgrade are in enemy territory. When you score this objective, if there are no enemy fighters adjacent to one or more of those friendly fighters, gain 1 additional glory point. Yeah, this is an amazing card, and it should be in every mask deck. I would be hard pressed to see a mask deck that this does not belong in. But you're going to be pretty pushy with your movement speed, I imagine, a lot of the time. And so you're going to be in enemy territory, and you can even hold off on putting this mask down, especially in this build, right? There's nothing else. Like there's no surges that are asking for a mask outside of Death's Visage if you want to turn this into a kill surge. So if you've only got the one mask in your hand, you can hold it and wait to apply it for Hooded Stranger. So that's the strength here. This is the only card in Kalen's deck that is looking for a mask in the end phase. So he requires a lot fewer masks than these three. Or the three that he has satisfies the ask of his objectives, is I suppose what I'm trying to say there. It would still feel like a total bummer to like have this in hand and not draw one of these three. And so I don't know if that's a mulligan decision, or if like maybe going 9 and 11 and grabbing another mask is worthwhile. I don't know. I mean, it'll happen eventually. You can always like just hold on to Hooded Stranger, especially as we look at the quality of like the other end phases. You can like in round 1, you know, you can hold something that's going to potentially score you 2 points, especially with that ease. You can hold that going into round 2 without worry. And so it's not really penalizing your hand if it hangs out across round 1. It just starts getting weird if you're into round 2 and you still haven't seen a mask yet. Hopefully at that point you have. Probability wise you should. Okay, so then taking a look at the rest, we have Exaltant Violence, I always think of Harkonnen, Harkuran Hurricane. Those are the two that we have in similar here. So we're going to take a look at those. Yeah. Exaltant Violence, score this in an end phase if 2 or more surviving friendly fighters are inspired. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. This is an auto score in round 3 if you haven't. Well, okay, auto score, assuming you have 2 surviving fighters of your 5. But I imagine that's probably not overly unlikely. So if you make it to round 3 and you have 2 fighters, it's that make it through round 3, it's going to auto score for you. But hopefully before that point, you've gotten the easy inspires off of these 2, and they've been able to stick around. Maybe you've also been able to grab inspire on Gryselle or Calexis. I think that this card is totally fine. I think if I was up against this warband, knowing that that's a staple, it's only 1 glory, so it's not the number 1 thing to like hunt down. But I'd probably try to target Thryala or Ritaria. I think they're all great targets generally. So pretty much my target order is these first 3. I don't really care too much about the last 2 when I'm fighting this warband. And so like if you have to pick, who you can take down. So this kind of weighs into the decision of trying to take these 2 down as well, knowing that their inspires are helping a scoring card. All right, so then easier said than done though, right? Like you got to get through that damage mitigation. That can get down to 0. I hope that's not a shock to anybody listening to this, but like on their cards it says minimum of 1. Their errata is minimum of 0. So like they can shake all the damage coming in on them, and they've got tricks to really combo that off. All right, so Harkonnen Hurricane, score this in phase if 3 or more friendly fighters are in enemy territory. That sounds very doable. Or each surviving friendly fighter is inspired. That piece sounds hard. That piece feels like Traxia is really going to drag you down. This would be another card to kind of keep in mind if you're up against these fighters. If they have 3 in your territory, and over the course of round 1, if they're just going all into your territory, they could have 4, and it could be really hard to peel them, like push them out or peel them down to smaller numbers. This feels totally reliable, but you can keep this in mind when you're fighting against them and try to push them out, and maybe just continue to keep Traxia alive. Like this is bait. Like unless you super need this seed glory for like getting an attack through against this 1 shield 2 health target which feels like a juicy little snack. Maybe resist, because she's going to hurt the ore here. I guess the other part of that puzzle though is if they just send that fighter over to be part of the 4, it's going to be a lot harder for it's going to be a lot harder, because you're like, oh well, now this one's also a part of the equation, and I'm trying to get them down to 2 or fewer fighters in my territory. I'm gonna have to go for it. So anyways, that's all to say. I think these are both great cards here. I just always like thinking about counterplay as well. Solid Spread is chosen here. Score this in an end phase if there are 1 or more friendly fighters in your territory, no one's territory, and enemy territory. Solid Spread is an interesting pick here. Reason being is because I feel like it's pretty decent in round 1, but I don't think it's pretty great. Like the best time you're going to score this is when you don't score Harkin and Hurricane because they drove one of your fighters back into no one's territory. I can see this also pairing well with Audacious Aspect, where maybe you've got one objective in no one's territory, and so that's already an attractive landing spot for you. You're hanging out on that to help with Audacious Aspect, and then just incidentally you're also picking up Solid Spread. So that's another vote for me to replace Faultless Display with Audacious Aspect. But Solid Spread, it's going to get harder as the game goes on. Like eventually I think you will get down to 2 fighters. Like you're always living on knife's edge for an enemy attack to break through and just take you out in generally 1 hit. Maybe 2 if you're really lucky with damage mitigation. And so this is going to get harder and harder, and it's going to require so much positioning from you. And it's really easily disruptible in a best of 3. So I would not recommend this card here, but let's take a look at the rest of what differs. So we have Bloody Show. Scores in an end phase if each surviving enemy fighter has 1 or more wound counters. That's cool. So if they're dead, they're no longer counting towards this. If they're alive, as long as they're wounded, they're counting towards this. You do have to move your damage around and make sure that you're spreading it out. Something like Vitrix's Eye and Taking Over can really help with that as an out-of-sequence offering. Combo can obviously help with that as well. You can do things like you can run up to somebody with Threala, who's 2 away, hit them with the Barbed Whip, and then turn around and hit whoever you're adjacent to with the follow-up. However, you just made the Barbed Whip much harder to hit. So there's give and take. I think that for 2 points, it's totally worth the squeeze. So all right, and then In Praise of Cain, score this in an end phase if each surviving fighter has 1 or more charge tokens and or 1 or more wound counters. This is a really fun card. This is their goal card, and I just really like it in general. You have to play towards it immensely, but once you do, I don't think it's impossible. With hold objective warbands being a little more popular right now, we're talking like Gitz and Sepulchral Guard. I wonder how difficult this is against that type of a warband. So that might be just the type of game where it's like, well, this card is probably dead, and whenever I draw it, I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of it. But I don't know if you need it in that game. In that game, you're able to farm the Gits, you're able to farm the skeletons, and you're able to focus on that. So I think you don't need to worry about In Praise of Cain in that game. I would say maybe the fact that you're looking for Bloody Show and In Praise of Cain makes those matchups particularly difficult. So that's something to think about. Is you are going to have a matchup where 5 Glory becomes extremely hard to reach. Like even if it was the one card, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. I've got this backup plan of just farming them. But with both, they're going to work amazing together when you're not into a pairing like that. When you're into your elites, and that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, okay. I guess enough on that for now. Let's take a look at the rest of the deck first, too, because there's more to this picture, right? So you never want to, when you're taking a look at a deck, you're not going to get a complete sense of understanding from just looking at the objectives without seeing the rest of the picture. That's why when looking at something like, scoring off of a mask, like Hooded Stranger, all right, how many masks do we have? Grandstand, how many flourishes do we have? There's always more that adds into the picture. Those are obvious things where we have these scoring opportunities that are looking for very specific things, and we can count and check as to how we're supporting that directly. But something like Faultless Display, I mentioned, gets harder with +1 dice, but +1 dice is getting better, or is serving some of our other cards better, like for example Death's Visage, because either we're trying to get a kill or we're trying to get 3 successful attacks, and extra dice is going to help push attacks through. And so we can take a look and see how much is supporting each element, and so we can we have some more to peruse yet. All right, so over here our differences are Warrior Faithful. Score this in an end phase if each surviving friendly fighter has 1 or more charge tokens and or is adjacent to 1 or more enemy fighters. I wonder, so in round 1 this is really tough. Outside of that, it's probably not. It's probably pretty easy. I wonder how he manages that in round 1. I don't generally like, and this is a playstyle difference, I don't generally like 1 glory cards that I can't score in round 1. So this is hard in round 1, but guaranteed in 3 and very likely in 2. So that's just putting the weight of an objective further down the line. So this card's probably part of his mulligan decisions. And then Stoic Appearance. Oh, right, no, we have a couple more. So we have Complete Pact and Stoic Appearance. Stoic Appearance, score this in an end phase if 1 or more friendly fighters with a mask upgrade are holding an objective. Again, we have a count of 4, and we have a reliability of 5. So this card is totally good. At all stages of the game is this possible. This is a good 1-pointer. So what he's going for from a goal card standpoint, that big ask for like 3 or more glory, is he's going for Completed Pact. Score this in an end phase if there are more surviving friendly fighters with mask upgrades than there are surviving enemy fighters. And I was so curious about this card. It was like the first card we talked about with this pairing. Zach volunteered, like, oh, I run Completed Pact in it, and like it works surprisingly well. And I was like, it what? How? Like, because that just doesn't seem like that would be the case. Like, you have 5 fighters at the beginning of the game, and so you got to get masks on enough of them while killing the other ones. And he's like, I'm scoring it because of the murder like that is happening. Like, it's not that I am like Gits and like I'm just gonna automatically outnumber you. I just gotta get my masks on 5 fighters against your 3 or 4 fighter warband. He's like, no, like what it is I need masks in like my 2 or 3 surviving fighters over your 1 or 2 remaining fighters on your side. And if there's 0 surviving enemy fighters, even 1 fighter can score him Completed Pact. So this is almost like Annihilation with wiggle room, where he's like, okay, so we're going to kill as many of them as we can, and at some point in time we're then going to make sure that like our masked fighters that are the ones that are still in play and out surviving him. And that can just be people that are awarded a mask right before scoring, because not much is direly in need of masks. Again, Audacious Aspect, probably the longer the game goes on, the more true this is. Like, when I talked about objective positions at the beginning, I was talking about scoring this in round 1. But if you can push as many objectives into their territory as possible, then over the course of the game, especially with your two range 2 fighters and some of your upgraded range, you can continue to push attacks onto your targets while hanging out on objectives, not in home territory. So this probably gets easier and easier as the game goes on to meet that second condition, and not need a mask for it. Domino dominance needs a mask, sure, but like you're probably cruising like on knowing that you can score this at any point in time. Like you'll have a couple of inspired fighters, a mask in your hand, and you're like, I can choose when I score domino dominance. So you can see a little bit more of the match. Like generally, I like, grabbing my next card as quickly as possible. Most people do. But there's always an opportunity to say like, oh, you know what? Like I know what could be coming up. And I don't need to worry about what could be coming up yet. I would rather hold off on this mask, placement for a second. And then I'll score this on the final power going into end phase. Maybe I'll luck into another end phase. Maybe not, but at least then I didn't jeopardize something like Hooded Stranger or Completed Pact. So this is such an interesting balance of masks to surge or like to objectives. If you're asking me, Kaylin, good luck in class. I just got a message saying that he had to head out, and we'll catch the rest later. Thanks again for sending the deck in. Okay, so what else do we have over here? Nope, we've tackled everything that we need to in the objectives on both sides. So let's dive into gambits. So we have Shuddering Violence in both and Taking Over in both on the mask side of the equation. So taking over, you're going to see this in every mask deck. I think when you're building a mask deck, if you're not bringing this, then like I can't think of a justification not to bring this. Like all of the masks like have an amazing action associated with them when you can cheat it out. Like the ability is not generally like perfect for activation economy. So you might be like, oh, I don't know if I want to use it like a full action for this. But when you can take over, then it's like generally above the power level of what a gambit could have given you. So this is a gambit that says, let me activate an effect that's better than a gambit generally, but maybe not as good as an activation. And that's really cool. So taking over helps you unlock a lot. And what is it doing specifically here? At minimum, it's Vitrix's Eye. In Kaylin's build for sure. I think it's Vitrix's Eye to help with Bloody Show and In Praise of Cain. In both cases, it's helping with our attack counts for surges, and like our kill surges and stuff like that. So that's cool. Because Death Visage would work, right? Yeah. From Wellner. Man, this is making me want to brew Rhymelock Relic Arenai now. Had that floating around, and my foray with the goblins has given me a newfound respect for the deck. For something relevant, I will say that Zach's deck did beat the Curse of the Arenai. Or the Curse of the Arena. That is the name of the Void Curse Thralls deck. And if I didn't mention it before, I was trying to mention like that deck has the accolade of winning one of our Madtown Throwdowns in the hands of Wellner here. I think it was Q2, if I recall correctly. So cool. I didn't realize that you two had an Arenai off, and it's cool to see that Zach's deck went toe-to-toe with it. So we've kind of gone over the main benefit of taking over here. It can obviously in both decks activate additional items, like being able to get rerolls off of Frostbitten Veil is huge, and is in his case going to help with something like Faultless Display. It's also obviously just going to help get your attacks through, or fish for that crit on Gryselle. Eternal Smile, this is going to be a way to boost up to extra damage. Maybe you're up against fighters. to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions other than scything attack actions until the end of the round. Oh, wow. So here it has the benefit of jumping on combo. No wonder these both of these decks focus a lot on the combo upgrades. Like they both have at least 2, which I guess like is a modest focus, but I think they only have 3 available in total. Let's go here. I should just have the filter ready on both. Let's see, combo. Yeah, so they have 3 available to them entirely. You know, Kaylin's taking 2, Zach's taking 3. And if you can activate, well, and hold on. One of them's range 3? No, they're all range 2. Range 1 or 2. Okay, so they all benefit from the Eternal Smile. That's something like strongly worth considering, is that you can ramp up the damage output on those fighters if they can land their multiple attacks. Yeah, so like here, like the masks that have been left at home, for those not fully familiar. So, you know, Eternal Smile, damage. Frostbite and Veil, reroll. Vitrix's Eye, laser beam. And then we have Envy Shroud, raising our health total likely up to 3 across the board. Can Envy Shroud go on a large fighter? I'm pretty sure it can. Yeah, because it breaks all the other upgrades. Envy Shroud is probably not the greatest include. And we see it here. Ha! It's probably not the greatest include because of the fact that the upgrades are so good in this deck. And so, like, it's going to rob a fighter of their additional upgrades. At the same time, it's going to get you up to 3 health. And if you can, like, luck into damage mitigation, like, that could be a whole nother attack that has to get brought down on you. So, yes, it's going to be somebody's only upgrade. But I can see why, like, hey, if I want to get Retaria a combo weapon, or like any of these 3 a combo weapon, I can't give them Envy Shroud or I'll lose that. If I give Envy Shroud to my leader, sure, I'm putting her up to 5, but I'm, you know, sacrificing something like Paragon of the Arena on her, which is like super scary. Best upgrade in the game, like hands down, and unrestricted to their fighters as well. I mean, it can go on anybody, so it doesn't have to be her. I wonder if Envy Shroud normally goes on Thyala, just because she's already got combo. Maybe. But at the same time, she'd be a cool target to get Eternal Smile on, and then all of a sudden she's hitting for 3 and then 2. And you didn't have to go find another combo upgrade card to get her going. All right, so what else can taking over do? Oh, sorry, Envy Shroud. And then what are our 2 additional ones? Something Hood. The Hood is the card I bring the least, because it's a push. It's really good in like Masked Grimwatch, and I like it in general. It's always like the 11th card that doesn't make it the Howling Hood. So you can push a fighter up to 2x's and then stagger the chosen fighter. They do have to be adjacent to the fighter that takes that action. And then does that round us out on masks? No, what mask am I forgetting? I'm gonna feel silly in like 2 seconds. Echo Guys. Yeah, I feel super silly. Echo Guys is going to get you. Oh wow, do either of you run Echo Guys? Neither of you run Echo Guys. Interesting. I like Echo Guys. It makes maybe a little less sense in here. It's kind of more of a defensive focus than an offensive focus here. You have a lot of 2 dodge fighters, and when you perform the Echo Guys action, Reverberate and Call, you're picking 2 feature tokens, one of which this fighter is on. Place each feature token in the hex the other feature token was in when you picked them. Rolls of double dot or double support are successes in this fighter's defense rolls until the end of the round in which this action is made. And so double support, like unlocking that on 2 dodge, you've just increased the like likelihood of success up to 50-50. And then anytime you can get 1 support in the picture, like that will still slot in and, you know, kick us up to 66%. So that's cool. Like the only thing then that's not working for you is shields in the example given. But it's very defensive focused. You're not really gaining any benefit from the feature tokens piece here, because neither of them are really looking for that. So yeah, it makes sense to leave it at home and just go more murder. Gentleman by the name of Compact, for those who've been on Vassal for a long time, would recognize the name. He used to play Mad Mob, toyed around with Gore Chosen as well. But when I built a Mad Mob deck that I took to a tournament, I remember talking with him and I showed him my first iteration of the build. And he was like, these are the cards that you should drop, and they were defensive focused. And he was like, and here's the cards that you should bring in, as far as my recommendation goes. And they were more aggro options. And he was like, your mission statement is aggro, so be aggro. And when you look at the scoring suites that we've built here, that's the mission statement. And so I totally understand leaving something like that on the wayside. All right, so then on to Shuddering Violence, because they both brought this. Choose a friendly fighter, stagger the chosen fighter, +1 dice to the first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by the chosen fighter in the next activation. If the chosen fighter has a mask upgrade, you can reroll 1 attack dice in the attack roll of that fighter's first attack action made in the next activation. So staggering yourself hurts, but at the same time, like, it's totally fine. Here I think like the plus dice is worth it. The chance to get the reroll is worth it. I'm not surprised to see both of them take it. I say like it hurts in the sense that like anytime an attack slips through and isn't mitigated, it can be the end of you, and so you're kind of like tempting that. But casino aggro is the theme here, and the benefits outweigh the downsides, and you don't quite frankly care too much about the death of a few fighters, but if you can make their lives worth it before they go down, that's worthwhile. And there's no guarantee that this will actually make it through. Like, you might have increased the chances of the attack landing, but you haven't decreased the chances of mitigation on yourself. And so they can kind of get away with like saying like, yeah, this attack's like landing. I just need to mitigate it. So what it's also doing here, I just wanted to call this out because we had before, is it's a good way to help Calexis here get inspired, which gets us closer to Harken on Hurricane. It gets us closer to Exaltant Violence as well. So it gets us closer to either of these cards by including this and using it on Calexis, because now she's throwing 3 dice. She only needs 1 success to get Blur to take her to her inspired side. So that's probably like a main use for this card. All right, so those were similarities. Let's take a look at similarities over here. I'm going to bet that they have all 3 of those cards. Yes, they do. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Zach's side to see those similarities. So Daring Flourish, -1 defense to a minimum of 1 from friendly fighters. That's gross. +1 dice to friendly fighters range 1 and range 2 attack actions. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeds. Give me +1 dice, and I'm going to bet that I can push this attack through and not suffer the negatives. That's what a flourish is. Through and through is, I bet this will work. If not, ouch. And +1 dice is totally worth the risk. It can again be your Calexis tool. I think that one's probably a little riskier. Like, I would rather use this to boost, let's see. Cool. So you can use this on combo, and it'll actually work with combo. Like, a lot of the times you'll see plus dice in an activation. Well, combo is reacting to that activation and leaves benefits that were temporarily available to them at home. So something like Shuddering Violence, +1 dice to the first, well, it says the first, so we're fine, by the chosen fighter in the next activation. But notice in the next activation, a lot of cards are worded in that way, where like in the next activation, gain these benefits. And so they don't get passed on to your combo attack because they're after this fighter's attack action, and that first attack action ends the activation. But Daring Flourish is even better knowing that it's going to work with combo. It's far more worth the risk as well. Like you can throw these 3 dice and miss, or 4 dice, and miss, and then get 2 dice here for a second shot at it. And that gets better as soon as you get some of the better items in here as well, like Lacerating Blow. Oh, that would be a great card to have with the combo on there. Like if you get Lacerating Blow on the Colexis and then use Daring Flourish, like sure, you might end up accidentally shaking the +1 dice on the first attack, but you're going to be happy with that. You're going to be happy that you got her inspired, and that you got Blur off. Whereas if you miss, then you can follow up with 3 hammers, so you have like a backup, knowing like, oh, this might not hit, and like I'm betting on this, like okay, well I bet 3 hammers is probably going to push through. All right, Spinning Flourish. Friendly fighters' range 1 attack actions are not considered to have combo. Friendly fighters' range 1 attack actions have Scything. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until after a friendly fighter's Scything super action in which 1 or more attack actions succeeded. This is worded really cleverly, just because there's no room for doubt as to like how long this is going to last, and it's going to last all the way through your Scything attack. I mean, it would be really silly if it didn't last all the way through, like a Scything attack. Like Scything, except for the first attack that works in the Scything, stops it. Like, no. So this is a really great way to deal with and punish hordes, which, especially for Kalen here, he's going to need to like have a plan for hordes specifically. And so that's a great card. I mean, anytime you see 2 fighters, like you start thinking about the game a little differently when you're thinking about the ability to turn a moment into a Scything attack, because you just get so much more value. So like anytime you can even line up 2 fighters, and turn it into Scything, that's huge. You could also do or until after a friendly in which 1 or more attack actions succeeded. Well, okay, so like let's say a super bad situation happened with Traxia here, or Colexis, and they were the ones that you were betting on with this. Well, if they have a combo, and that's Lacerating Blow, they'll be able to do the Scything attack again. So they're up against 2 fighters, we'll say. They missed both of their first attacks. That's fine. Oh wait, no, they're not considered to have combo. I lied to you. That's not an option. So hopefully one of your attacks work. Smart designers. All right. And then Unquenchable Fervor. The next time a friendly fighter is dealt damage, reduce that damage by 2 to a minimum of 1. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until damage is reduced in this way. So this is amazing with, like, in general. Like, this card's just great. So being able to reduce an attack by 2. So you have a 2 health fighter, generally. Your leader's at 4. But generally, you have a 2 health fighter. A 3 damage attack is coming in. Well, being able to shake it down to a 1 damage attack means I'm gonna live. Now, in a world of pings, live for how long? Well, you could your Unquenchable Fervor here and Acrobatic are going to happen at the same time. So you get to sequence which one you want to have happen first. So you can say, I know I rolled a dodge in my defense roll, but I'm going to have Unquenchable Fervor take that attack down to 1, and then I'll have Acrobatic take it down to 0. And now I've shaken all of the damage entirely. So that's really cool. Also, let's say it was only like a 1 damage attack already. You won't lose this. Like a lot of cards in the game are worded in such a way where, like, as long as I throw an attack at it, doesn't matter. Like it'll take it down. This card persists until damage is reduced in this way. So if I'm throwing a 1 attack out, then Unquenchable Fervor is going to continue to be in play because it's not doing any reduction at all. So that's good as well. Oh, hey, update on Envy Shroud. Zach's in chat. He says Envy Shroud generally goes on Threala. Ooh, guessed right. Okay, sweet. Traxia. Okay, sure. Or Calexis. Really? Calexis? Huh. Okay. I wonder if that's like pre-inspire Calexis. And I guess it's all board state relevant, right? So seeing Threalia as the first one that you mentioned makes a lot of sense to me. One of the later two won't get follow-up anyway, so it doesn't really matter that they can't get other upgrades. These two won't get their follow-up attack. Okay, that sounds good. You lose combo that tech works with Void Curse Thralls, though, because Void Curse Assault is a range 1 attack, though. Oh, fun. Ah, what an interesting little pairing. So yeah, looking at Void Curse Thralls, if you go in with your spinning flourish, you miss, you go into the power step. If you have Void Curse Assault, that's your second try. That's really neat. That's a really cool like pairing interaction. So let's see. We're at 1:30. We have a half hour at most left to peel through the deck. So we've identified what's the same in the gambits. Let's not look at what's different yet. Let's look at what's the same in the upgrades as well. So we've already seen that these three masks are the same across both, and that makes perfect sense. Dark Humor. You can reroll 1 defense dice in this fighter's defense rolls. So the reason this is winning out over something like Echo Guys, first off, you have to activate Echo Guys to get its benefit. And so like you're wasting taking over or an activation to get to Echo Guys benefit. So that's another argument to not bring it along. Dark Humor is online right away. It's going to give you a better chance of getting mitigation out the door or rolling a crit and stopping the attack entirely. It makes 100% sense to see Dark Humor in here, taking advantage of the 2 dodge. And this is definitely going on your 2 dodge fighters. This is not getting wasted on Traxia. And then if this fighter has a mask, also gets this cool push. And that is just something that's really fun when it goes off. Use this after an attack action that targeted this fighter. If this fighter's defense roll contained 1 or more critical successes, push the attacker 1 hex. What's nice too is it doesn't have any range restrictions. They didn't have to be adjacent to you. So somebody trying to hit you from range 2, 3, and you roll that crit, you're like, go away even more. So Dark Humor, great card. Makes perfect sense to see it here. That reroll is huge for them. So then we've talked about the fact that they both have follow-ups. So let's search combo again. Which one was left at home? We're going to look at them down here. So Kaylin has these 2. Zach has all 3. So Kaylin has Criplash. We're looking at range 2, 2 swords, 1 damage. After this fighter's attack action with combo, make this attack action. We're going to see that at the bottom of all of these. So we're kind of comparing this against this. It's the same stats. It's just, which one do you value, cleave or ensnare? And there could be more to the picture as to why he picked ensnare. I don't know if he has any other source of cleave. I personally think that like cleave is probably more valuable most of the time. It's really meta dependent. Like if you know you're going into a meta that's going to have, if you know you're going to go into a meta that has a ton of dodge, then you take Criplash. If you know you're going into an elite meta, you bring Piercing Strike, right? Because your elite meta is going to have a lot of fighters on shield. And then Lacerating Blow, they both have this. After this fighter's attack action with combo, make this attack action. I don't know why I read that again. Apologies. So this is range 1, 2 hammer with Grievous. So, and anytime you can get that an extra dice, you're more likely to get that extra damage out of it as well. And something like Frostbite and Veil, extends to your combo attacks, which is really cool. The more I see this pairing, the more I understand why it makes sense. Like the more we dive into it. This is really cool. I'm glad you both thought this up. So okay, so that's not showing up on screen. It's getting cut off a little bit. How do I? There we go. So I essentially have to pull the size down, but then we get the whole card text on screen. So Paragon of the Arena. This is definitely going to be in both their decks. Reaction after the declare attack action step of this fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack actions, pick one. So this works in any attack coming from this fighter, which is just bonkers when you consider the fact that they have combo and they have like scything, access to scything with the flourish. Was it fatal? No. Either way. Spinning. That makes sense. So every time they declare an attack, give this fighter either a guard token, which increases their survivability immensely, +1 dice to that attack action until it is resolved, or +1 damage to the attack action until it is resolved. I think most of the time, you're not even picking the guard because you're just choosing to deal a ton of extra damage. Now, if you did Shuddering Violence earlier and you staggered your fighter and you were able to give them Paragon of the Arena, you're probably then taking that guard token on to flip, the stagger that you took on. However, this is just so good to just be able to add an extra damage to any attack, to add probability to any attack. This card's fantastic, and it's not fighter restricted. So let's see, what else do we have that is the same? Devotee of Slaughter is the same. Devotee. And Blood Sigil is the same. So Blood Sigil, -1 damage to a minimum of 1 from attack actions that target this fighter. This stacks into that mitigation equation as well as the Unquenchable Fervor. So you can sequence, again, these are happening at the same time from attack actions that target this fighter. I guess it's not actually happening at the same time. This is happening first. Blood Sigil is modifying the damage characteristic that is coming in against you. But if it brings it down to 1, then Unquenchable Fervor is not going away, right? Or maybe you take a 3 damage attack, you have Blood Sigil, take it down to 1, Blood Sigil takes the attack from 3. I mean, let's talk about a 4 damage attack. That's going to be the fun example. So you roll 1 dodge, in an attack that would normally deal 4 damage to a fighter, and you have Unquenchable Fervor out as well. -1 from Blood Sigil to 3, -2 from Unquenchable Fervor to 1, and then let's use that acrobatic dodge that we grabbed, and now we're down to 0, and we just shook off a 4 damage attack entirely. And then there's other combinations of what I just described, whether you get a couple of dodge results that you can use, or you want to keep Unquenchable Fervor around, for a later attack based on your dice results and stuff like that. Because you can always say, actually, I'm going to reduce it to 1 with my acrobatic, and then Unquenchable Fervor never did any reduction, so it's going to stick around, help safeguard me for that next attack. You can really play with your mitigation with these gals. So it's no surprise to see Blood Sigil in both decks. And Devotee of Slaughter, you cannot give this to a leader +1 wounds. So we're without any penalty from Envy Shroud, we're able to bring these gals up to 3 health, and again make that mitigation go further. No surprise to see it in both. We've identified all the similarities in gambits and upgrades. Let's take a look at what sets them apart. Let's start with upgrades. We'll work backwards, and then we'll call it a wrap from there. This is not the typical type of episode where I'm going to take one of these decks. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is kind of an atypical deck doctor where normally we would take a look at one deck and we would see if there were any recommendations we could make after taking the time to see how that deck works. But today we got the rare and fun opportunity to do this like comparison, um, and I like both routes of these decks. So I think go home, try both. Like if you're watching this, pick whichever one is standing out to you the most, and give it a joyride. I think so far on Kalen's deck, I find fault with Faultless Display. I just don't like this card. But otherwise, there's a little bit of risk, in certain matchups with Bloody Show and in Praise of Cain. But I don't know if that risk is like unsurmountable. Like I think, or insurmountable. Like I think you can gain. You have so much prowess over a Horde Warband that I don't think you care too much. And I think you could even reduce the board state down far enough to help you gain one or both of these. So let's keep diving into now what sets these decks apart, and then we'll close out the episode. So over here we have, is it Piercing Strike, which we've already talked about is the cleave option. And I'm sure that was a hard cut for Kalen, especially keeping it at 10 upgrades over here. Oh, Zach, if you have a chance in chat, what steered you towards 9 and 11? I'm sure it's just like the upgrade quality. And like maybe how easily you feel like you're able to get Seed Glory. I'm just curious, like at what point did you switch from like 10 to 10? Like, was it right away? Was there a moment where you realized, wait a minute, I think I want to try 9 and 11? And like what card was cut? Like what card is no longer in Gambits to keep you at that nice even 20? Okay, so let's see. Lacerating Blow covered, Criplash covered. Oh, okay, so all of the upgrades over here have been covered. How many differed? So do we just mainly differ in Gambits, and then we just have extra upgrades? So Devotee of the Blade is different. So Piercing Blade, we can say, is the difference here. Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, so there's one card different, and then an additive card for Zach. Very cool. Okay, so Devotee of the Blade. This fighter's defense characteristic is Shield. This fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions have Cleave. There's the source of Cleave. So yes, Kalen said, you know what? Instead of taking on combo, and this is cool. So again, playstyle divergence here, because there's an argument to be made for both. So you have a defense characteristic now that is looking for shield, so you have a higher chance of defending. Meanwhile, dodges are still working for acrobatic. You haven't turned acrobatic off. So you're kind of benefiting from both dice results in their own different ways. Meanwhile, you've given yourself cleave. So that's his source of cleave. Zach has it on Piercing Blades, leaning more into I want more combo. And if he turns on Eternal Smile, if he turns on Frostbitten Veil, that gives him more attacks to like put against these abilities, right? So all of a sudden somebody that has that Piercing Blade, which happens to be the follow-up that he was able to draw into, is also then potentially able to benefit from Eternal Smile and Frostbitten Veil. And those can dictate the placements. So like maybe the fighter first got one of these masks, and then later we drew into our first follow-up. All right, we're going to give him Piercing Blade now, or vice versa. And then, hey, we have Taking Over. We can cheat out an action. Or, we're winding down and we're finding that it's going to be valuable to take an action to get these extra benefits. It kind of feels like the mask combo almost feels like Poor Man's Paragon of the Arena, though, and it is terrifying thinking of like one of those mask abilities online with Paragon of the Arena. Like all of the attacks are turned up to +1 damage, and then every attack that you're making, you're like, how about another extra damage on the top of them? Like this can go hard quickly. Okay, so I guess one thing I did say that we were going to talk about, and now that we're onto the gambits, we'll talk about it. So Maskborn is the different card here for Kalen, and I don't like it here. And the reason is, and so this could just be here to test it out. And like this is a really fun card, and is worth testing and considering. But I'm afraid it's not going to do enough in this deck because we do only have the 3 masks and we don't have anything bumping the reliability. So we're relying on these masks to make Maskborn happen. And we don't have a way, we don't have reveal. Oh, you do. Cool. Revealed Aspects, just an amazing card. So we don't have Revealed Aspect to like help cheat that out later either. And the other thing about Maskborn here is I think this deck is going to be extremely aggressive. Both decks. You're going to be bringing the hurt to the enemy a lot of the time. And if you're bringing the hurt to the enemy, then you're leaving your home territory, and that's where Maskborn works. Choose a friendly fighter with a mask upgrade that is out of action. Place the chosen fighter on a starting hex in your territory. The chosen fighter then makes 1 action after the following surge step. The chosen fighter is taken out of action. When the chosen fighter is taken out of action in this way, they have no bounty. After this fighter's attack with the combo. So what's cool is there's nothing stopping the fighter from using combo, which is probably why it's in Caitlin's deck. Because again, it's worth consideration. Like I don't want to say like it's just like a bad card, because it's not. This can also work towards its the out of sequence attacks for the surges. This can also work towards it can get you the combo attack. So working towards your surges and getting you the extra attack off with combo. So I guess my question then is, how much can you live in your own territory, or do you really have to push the fight? I mean, if you don't push the fight, you're not scoring. So if you're up against anybody that can hold back, they're going to make you come to them. You don't have passive glory, so you do have to bring the fight. Har Karon Hurricane is forcing you into enemy territory as well. In Praise of Cain is looking for charges and wound counters. Hooded Strangers pulling you into enemy territory. Solid Spread's getting you there a little bit. Yeah, I think that Maskborn is going to be really hard to guarantee value out of, because you have to find your opponent ending up in your territory. And so you either have to bait them there, or you have to hope that they're going to try to get away from you and go over there for the mileage out of Maskborn. So this would be a swap out. And we'll take a look at Zach's deck. Maybe between the two decks, such different takes on the pairings, there's an option in there that I can recommend. So, and solid spread I kind of mentioned before again. I just don't think is worth the pursuit for the 1 glory, but in your early round it is really reliable, it's more reliable. And if he brings in Audacious Aspect, puts 1 on midline, I'm even more comfortable with it. So maybe it can hang because it's kind of the exact opposite of how I felt about Warrior Faithful. It's taking your 1 glory end phase and weighting it towards the beginning with solid spread, and in Warrior Faithful it's taking it towards the second half of the game and weighting it that way. Both are fine. It's just understanding it's understanding why what you're hoping for out of that 1 glory and when it can do that for you. Like what's the give and take. Okay, so on to Pain of Slaughter. Let's look at the rest of the differences. No, let's keep focusing on this part of the picture over here. I was gonna say maybe we look at the mask parts of Zach, but let's keep here. So Daring Flourish. So here's one of the other flourishes. Nope, this is the one that they both share. Fatal Flourish. After a friendly fighter's attack action that failed, do 1 damage to the attacker. +1 damage to friendly fighters range 1 and range 2 attack actions. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeds. Um, so obviously the risk is high here. The more you can combo it, the better. So this is the type of thing where, like, if you can put Fatal Flourish in combo with Spinning Flourish, but you're hoping that those cards both come up at the same time, and you're hoping that they come up at the same time as Grand Stand. My philosophy with Grand Stand is if you have a single Flourish in round 1, you hold that in your hand, and you wait for your draw up for round 2, and you hope for another one at 4 flourishes. And that is going to make for some big moments, but it's going to help make sure that you're never at a time where, like, you never want to spend 2 flourishes if you don't have Grand Stand in your hand. And so by holding one over to round 2, you're helping ensure Grand Stand is more likely. So that's just like a play point. But yeah, Fatal Flourish seems fine. I mean, taking 1 health with them is not the end of the world. It's scary. It really is. But between taking this and the one with Grievous, I'll take this one. Because if you do fail, you're pingable unless you can get a +1 wound on. And you're super reliant on making sure you can mitigate to 0 from then forward, or that your opponent doesn't draw into their ping. And with Hungering Parasite out, Malefic Siphon, you'd want to be thinking about that all the time. You'd want to be like, okay, don't attack the Parasite, don't attack, because, like, if I do and I don't kill them, then they're going to heal 1 and ping my fighter to death. Leaping Flourish. Friendly fighters cannot make attack actions other than during charge super actions. Okay, that's fine. We're going to charge. Friendly fighters have the flying trait. Cool. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeds. This is the type of thing that's gonna help you against your linchpin warbands. Otherwise, this is fuel for Grand Stand. So we have like this card more than any of the other flourishes is your, like, base level fuel, and then, like, you hopefully combo it with one of the other ones. But you're fine comboing the rest. It's just like this card on its own isn't doing much for you unless you're in an Exile Dead game or you're in a Sepulchral Guard game, and then this card could be everything, because it's going to help you get to that key target and hopefully take him down, and then just change the game entirely. Like, at that point, then, like, you just get to play cleanup on the zombies or skellies in that game. Moment of Rapture. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack action that succeeded. Pick 1, heal 2 that fighter, or inspire that fighter. I'm gonna bet that this is generally used for the inspire to help with Exalt or Harkuran Hurricane. It's cool that we can draw a line directly to it. That heal could be really big. Like, combine the fact that you can often mitigate attacks with the fact that you can shake some form of damage off entirely on your leader. This is scary as hell. On a fighter with only 1 health left, this might have just given them second life, especially if you have a +1 wound that you can pass out. Maybe you have a fighter that's already been at 3, is down to 1, boom, back up in the game. Moment of Rapture, we can draw a line to different objectives for it, and that heal could be huge. I think it's fine. Pain of Slaughter, you can reroll 1 attack dice in the attack rolls for friendly fighters' attack actions in the next activation step. This is the type of card that I was talking about that does not extend to your combo. Your leader does need to be alive for this, which means we get a little bit of card draw out of it if she goes down. So that's an interesting extra bit here, but rerolls are never bad, and are, like, here it's pointing to Faultless Display as something to help with Faultless Display. So if you remove this, there's a chance that you open this spot up, but I don't know if you would, because well, you have to play it in advance and you don't know if it's, like, gonna be needed. But man, if it does work, you're gonna want, or you're gonna be happy it was there. We're closing in on the hour, so let me take a look over here real quick. Hooded Rush, so a push of potentially 2. You do have to have an upgrade on a fighter. If you do, you're pushing him 1. If it's a mask, you're pushing him 2. That repositioning has got to be insane. That's just got to feel great to just all of a sudden position one of these slaughtered daughters into position. Super cool. Revealed aspect. Choose a friendly fighter, including fighters who are out of action, with 1 or more upgrades, and add 1 of those upgrades to your hand. Then give the chosen fighter 1 upgrade from your hand or power discard pile. Do not spend any glory points when you do so, and pick 1. So your other option is to draw a power card with this. This card is great. I love this in this build when you see completed pact here as well. You can risk a mask early. Let's say you put Vitrix's eye out because you're able to get use out of it earlier, maybe even use taking over on it. And then later that fighter is dead. You can reveal the aspect that back into your hand and get it out, and hopefully counting towards something like completed pact. So this kind of actually elevates our reliability beyond 5, maybe 5.5. I wouldn't quite call it 6, but maybe. And you can always use it to just draw a power card if things are going swimmingly. There's so much trick potential with Revealed Aspect. You can get other upgrades back too, like Paragon of the Arena. Like, incredible card. I would recommend Revealed Aspect over Maskborn, I think. Just in general here. But again, I see why Maskborn is here as described before. And Scrabble in the Dirt. This card is totally a playstyle choice. I'm in the camp of loving it. Pick a gambit with the Malevolent Mask symbol in your power discard pile. Add that card to your hand, then discard 1 power card. The more you bring from Malevolent Masks, the better this is. We've got 6 ploys here, so it's looking for one of the other 5 that is in itself, and is allowing you a second option at it. That could be Unveiled Ambitions to get another mask out, so we'll call that reliability level 6 now. That could be taking over to get another shot at it. That could be Hooded Rush for a big push. That could be Revealed Aspect just because you need to situate your hand. Like, you have a card that you don't need in your hand right now, and Scrabble in the Dirt. Let's ditch the card we don't need, ditch Scrabble in the Dirt, grab Revealed Aspect again, get another card. Oh, sweet. Like, we had 2 cards in our hands that we didn't find a value. I'm sure the next one will be better because you're bringing 20 cards that are generally going to suit you. Yeah, okay. So I got to get out of here, but these were a lot of fun to review. I hope you enjoyed this like comparison journey. I like both decks. I think that they're both valid. The only card for sure I would swap is Faultless Display. The rest, spice as you desire. Like, little cooking exercise. Try them out. See if there's like crossover between the 2 decks that you're like, you know what, I want to sprinkle that in from over here. So I think that they're very well thought out, and I can totally see the appeal with a mass pairing on the Arenai. All right. Okay, so next week it's going to be one of the topics we talked about at the top of the show. If you want to send a deck in my way to be looked at on the show, let me know. We're going to try to start next week off with a field report as well, regardless of what we do, because I would like to, and maybe we do an extended field report. I'll feel that out. But I owe a field report on Crushes with Rime Black Relics, so we'll get that out next week. And then between now and when I see you, I encourage you to try this deck out. I'll link it in the show notes here as quick as I can. Otherwise, or both decks, and I'll get both decks up on Battle Mallet as well. So you should see those by the end of the day there. And again, I strongly encourage giving them a try. Thank you so much, Zach and Kaylin, for getting these decks over to us so that we could check them out on the show. If you would like to chat with me, you can always reach me in the comment section down below. I do read every comment that comes in, and you can also reach us on the Mortal Realms Discord. It's a great place to hang out, talk about the game. Best place to find a link for the Discord is at themortalrealms.com. where you can also check out everything else that we have to offer in the Age of Sigmar sphere. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar, and this has been What the Decks.